Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be providing commentary on an article by ABC News on how inflation has plummeted, but these prices are still soaring. So I'm not sure I would say inflation has plummeted. I mean, it's slowing down, but it's not been declining in any way, shape, or form. It's not even held steady. And so people are still facing inflation when they haven't even had wage adjustments for prior inflation. And so their money is worth far less, and it's still becoming worth even less and less, just at a slower rate than it was before. But let's look at what this article has to say about ABC News. A better than expected inflation report last week bolstered hopes that a prolonged bout of severe price hikes is near its end. But the cost of some staple items continues to soar. Consumer prices rose 3% last month compared to a year ago. Okay, so it's not saying that prices have stabilized. It's still going up by 3% year over year, but it's just going up slower, marking a significant slowdown for a peak last summer, more than 9% government data showed. And remember, for the job numbers, they completely lied about those, and then they revised them like a year later, saying, actually, we didn't actually have job increases, we actually had job decreases. So who knows if they're actually telling the truth here in terms of price increases? Because I remember when I was in America last year, that price increases far exceeded what they said the average inflation was. So either I was purchasing food goods that are going up at a higher rate of inflation than their averages, or they were just lying to us. And it was probably just the fact that they were lying to us, to be completely honest. The after effects of pandemic-induced supply chain blockages and the Russia-Ukraine war, however, have kept price hikes elevated for some crucial goods such as bread and frozen vegetables, experts told ABC News. Okay, so bread's high now. So America, bread lines might be in your future. You should be concerned. You should definitely be very concerned. Here's what to know about which prices are still rising and what's causing the surge. See, it's just embarrassing to think about, but like in the West, it's too costly to be alive. And people are realizing that. Like there's over 100,000 deaths of despair, so people doing drug overdoses, things like that on a yearly basis. And people are recognizing between high housing costs and high food costs, you literally can't afford to be alive in America. That's where we're going. Okay, so this subtitle, bread and beer. The price of bread jumped 11.5% in June compared to a year prior. Okay, so not only was inflation already high, but over 1/10 price increase on bread from year over year, on top of the prior inflation. This isn't including prior inflation. This is just a comparison from the prior year. So if in the other years of the pandemic, the price went from like $10 to $15, it's saying it's 11.5% year over year on the $15 instead of that original 10 from before the pandemic. This is only comparing a year ago to today. So just want to frame that properly so people realize that inflation is catastrophic right now. So market costs increased nearly 4 times higher than overall inflation, which I don't believe that the inflation numbers are honest. The cost of cookies jumped 8.8% over that period. So you have to suffer without cookies or with fewer cookies now because life wasn't miserable enough in the West. You can't afford cookies. While the price of beer leapt 5.4% according to government data. Okay, so you can't afford bread to make a sandwich. You can't afford bread or cookies to dip your tears in, and you can't afford beer to wash away your sorrows. So you're just screwed if you're in the West right now. You're just screwed across the board. Taken together, these sharp price increases stem in large part from grain supply shortages imposed by the Russia invasion of Ukraine, the world's 5th largest exporter of wheat, said Mark Hamrick, a Washington bureau chief and senior economic analyst at Bankrate.com. It begins with the war in Ukraine, Hamrick told ABC News, and there have been ripple effects from that. On Monday, Russia paused its participation in a key deal allowing for the export of Ukrainian grain, potentially exacerbating the global supply shortage, said David Ortega, a food economist at Michigan State University. Okay, so this is a propagandist way of commenting on this. Russia pulled out of the grain deal because the other side had already pulled out of the grain deal in every way that matters. Because the grain deal was supposed to say if Ukraine was using the grain shipments and the various food staples shipments throughout the Black Sea, if they were using it for military purposes, then Russia does not have to allow safe passage for those ships because it's being used in a war effort against Russia. And so the agreement was first broken by Ukraine because they were using those shipments for war purposes. And Russia said, don't do it. If you do it, we're going to pull out of the deal. Because why would you ever continue on with a deal where the other side isn't enforcing their part of the deal? Like an agreement has two sides to it. And if the other side pulls out, you're not even really pulling out of the deal if you don't fulfill your side at that point because they're not fulfilling their side. Okay, so the deal's over. The deal didn't end with Russia. The deal ended with Ukraine. Okay? The deal ended with Ukraine attacking the bridge, killing a couple of civilians, and then mocking those civilians. That's when it ended. It wasn't Russia's fault. This is a propaganda paragraph here. And even as global supply chains have tried to adapt to the grain shortage, elevated fuel prices have added transport costs, Ortega said. There's a reality of higher costs compared to pre-COVID, he said. Oh no, this is... Out of all the pictures you could use to represent an American grocery store, using the liquid sugar aisle is what they chose to use. It's understandable when talking about Americans, and I'm saying this as an American who drank far too much pop, soda, whatever you want to call it, when I was a child, and I only stopped as an adult. But it's just an embarrassment that this is... It's like, you can't have healthy stuff anymore because it's too costly. So just drink liquid sugar now because that's been subsidized by the government. When looking at this aisle, you can't help but start to contemplate that maybe the government wants you to be obese. Maybe they want you to be obese so you can't show your dissent from what the government is doing. You can't protest properly because you're too morbidly obese to do so. Maybe they want you to be sick all the time so that you're consuming various pharmaceuticals from the pharmaceutical companies that their buddies own. I mean, when you look at this aisle, it should tell you what the West is trying to do to its own populace, because this is disgusting to look at. Okay? And quite frankly, and this is probably going to be a hot take here, I don't think that liquid sugar should be something that kids should be allowed to drink. I would actually say this should be 21 and over for people to drink this liquid sugar garbage. It's terrible for you. Absolutely terrible for you. If you're able to, I would even recommend drinking alcohol before liquid sugar. That's how bad it is. So just horrible stuff, junk food, and that stuff is still cheap. So processed fruits and vegetables. So you can't have fruits and vegetables because those prices are apparently too egregious as well. Some of the most eye-popping price increases have struck packaged fruits and vegetables, okay? Frozen vegetable prices soared more than 17% in June compared to a year prior, which makes for an inflation rate nearly 6 times higher than the overall pace. Okay, so you can't be healthy at all. You can't have bread for a sandwich, you can't have cookies, you can't have beer, you can't have frozen fruits and vegetables to be healthy. The cost of canned fruits jumped more than 8% over that period. Meanwhile, and the price of canned vegetables rose more than 5%, government data showed. Such foods have resisted a cool down in prices because they require long supply chains that calls for packaging and processing, which in turn exposes them to elevated supply costs as the global economy works out remaining kinks from the pandemic disruptions, Ortega said. So Russia doesn't have this problem because they make food at home. It's just so weird that America has allowed itself, even encouraged a situation where they literally do not have a supply chain where they could take care of their own food needs, especially things like fruits and vegetables. But the thing is, they don't really care if the average person can have healthy food such as fruits and vegetables. They only care about if their own elites can have fruits and vegetables. You, on the other hand, can have this. You can have junk food. You can have liquid sugar. That's all you're allowed to have. You're supposed to be unhealthy because you end up becoming a consumer of pharmaceuticals and healthcare products for the rest of your lives if you're unhealthy. Okay, so where were we? Such foods have resisted blah 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 supply chain, elevate supply costs as the pandemic works out remaining disruptions. Okay. By comparison, Ortega noted price increases for fresh produce have slowed significantly. See, they say slowed significantly, but it's not stopped. It's still increasing. The prices of fresh fruits and vegetables climbed just 1.1% in June compared to a year prior. Oh, if it's a dollar before, it's a little bit it's a little bit higher, $1.01 now, right? In the perimeter of stores, we're seeing food prices abating, Ortega said, highlighting the presence of fresh food in that area. In the center of the store, that's where we're seeing food price inflation persist. Highlighting the presence of fresh food in that area. Okay, so apparently, and I guess I kind of knew this, like a little bit on the edges, but the way that stores distribute their food, organize their food within the store, it's depending on the types of goods. So perimeters of stores are apparently things like junk food, I guess. And the center of the store is things like healthy things like fruits and vegetables. I don't know how they do that, but that's what they're saying here. Underwear and jewelry. Okay, so we're about to see if you're able to afford underwear. Okay, let's see. Price hikes also remain sky high for some apparel goods. The prices for women's underwear and swimwear jumped more than 7% in June compared to a year ago. Prices of men's underwear climbed over 4% during that period. All right, well, hopefully you can afford at least a few pairs of underwear. I did purchase underwear myself recently and literally made a comment to the store clerk saying it's getting expensive to wear underwear these days, but there's no alternative, said Hamrick of bankrate.com. That's kind of embarrassing. You're now getting to the point where Americans can't afford to eat, they can't afford a house, they can't even afford underwear. In general, such price hikes result from a mismatch between supply and demand, Hamrick added, noting that he did not know the exact cause of the rise in the underwear prices. Similarly, the price of jewelry jumped more than 7% in June compared to a year ago, far outpacing the inflation rate for overall apparel costs during that period, which stands at 3.1%. Okay, so you can't wear your bling anymore. I think that's a little bit better. I'm a function person. I don't really care about the appearance or aesthetics of something. So don't really care about your jewelry. I care about the fact that you should definitely be wearing underwear, especially when watching my videos. Okay. And you should be eating. You should be able to afford food. You should be able to afford a roof over your head, right? You should be able to afford healthy food such as like veggies. Okay. Other notably high prices increases over the past year include a roughly 12% leap in pet food costs and a nearly 9% rise for tools and outdoor equipment, government data shows. Okay, 4% leap in pet food costs. All right. The crazy cat lady segment of the population is probably rioting right now. Okay, so that's unfortunate for that. The price of eggs, which spiked last summer due to an avian flu outbreak, has fallen nearly 8% over the past year. Okay, at least they ended the article with some positive news that the price of eggs went down. But this is just tragic. It's embarrassing that there are so many necessities in society that are increasing in prices, and the government just doesn't care. They're not focusing on this. This isn't a priority for them because they're able to afford things. You're just not able to afford things, and they don't work for you. They work for the oligarchs. So if you liked my analysis, my take on this video, please provide an upvote. Please like my video. It helps me in the algorithm. And if you want to hear more content from me, please subscribe to our channel. I love seeing you guys. I know I have hundreds of returning viewers now, tens of thousands of people, unique viewers every month as well. So very exciting, very interesting times that we're living in. If this was a role-playing game about the life of Joe Ligato, I would say this is a good starting point. This is the era to be in. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.